Hello and welcome back to the Three-Handed Bandits channel, the only channel on YouTube where I say this. Today I'm joined with the sluttiest co-host on the entire YouTube platform, Aiden. How are we doing today?
Doing great. Doing
Doing
fantastic.
great. Okay, well, glad to hear it. And so today we're gonna have a nice video for you today. We're gonna be breaking down the NFC. We're gonna go conference by division. Give some record predictions, tell you who's gonna make the playoffs, give you some award predictions as well, and tell you who's gonna be the NFC Championship. Then we'll have the AFC version of this video coming out hopefully later in the day. So yeah, as I said, we're talking about the NFC today, and we're just gonna get right into it. We're gonna start with the NFC North. The Lions kicked us off on Thursday Night Football with a big upset win. And this is a team that we actually both have winning the division. We agree pretty much how the order of this division is going to go. As you can see on the little graphic on the screen right now, the left side is going to be my predictions. The right side is going to be Aiden's predictions. So why do you have the Lions winning the division?
I love Dan Campbell. It's just that organization. Bringing him in is just gonna shine. Solid offense. The defense is gonna be a little trouble, but I think they can pull through.
Yeah, I agree. I do think the Lions are the best team in the division. I don't think people are quite giving the Vikings quite as much credit as they deserve. I still believe that Kirk Cousins is a really excellent quarterback. If you put Justin Jefferson on an offense, it's going to be real explosive. And then hopefully Brian Flores will be able to help turn this defense around just a little bit from what it was one of the worst units in all of the league last year. So even if it's serviceable, I imagine they'll be able to compete for the NFC North picture there. What are your thoughts on the Packers? We both have them at 7-10.
I was just kind of keeping in the middle of the road. I mean, it's a Jordan Love kind of feel it out year, see how he does. That's the real important thing there. That's like the only reason I don't want to give them too much credit, too little. I mean, they're a solid team, have a good run game. Just all depends on Jordan Love.
And yeah, so that's what I was saying in our video that we made earlier about the Packers in the offseason is Jordan Love, not only is he 25, very young quarterback, finally getting the chance to start and play here in Green Bay, but the average age of the receivers and the tight ends, the playmakers for this offense is, they're all 22, 23, 24. So this is going to be a super young offense. I think the Packers have the average youngest age of any team in the NFL. So the issue with them, I think, is week to week, there may be some inconsistencies that you just normally get from having a group of young players. But I do think there's going to be some weeks where they really do shine. And now when we talk about the Bears, you're a little bit higher on the Bears than I am. Personally, for me, while I do love Justin Fields' scrambling ability and ability as a runner, I still think he's so far behind the curve when his passing ability. I think that's really going to limit the Bears team this year.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I only had them over two more games. It wasn't like a huge discrepancy when it comes to 6-11 and 4-13. I just a little higher on them because I feel like Justin Fields could elevate them a little bit. I mean, getting more in there so he has a better target to deal with. That might change a couple games. And I'm a big believer also in Cole Kmet's ability. But I think they can squeeze two more games. Just cause I don't want to put them too low, but I'm not as high on them as well.
And see, so that's the difference for me is I think that the Bears are going to be closer to having the first overall pick than to even being, like third place or second place in this division. I really do think that they're going to be one of the worst teams in football. So when we're kind of recapping the NFC North, we both do have the Lions on top, the Vikings right behind, then the Packers and the Bears in tandem. So now as we transition over to the NFC East, I imagine this is a conference where I'm going to have some people upset with me, especially in the Philadelphia region of the United States. However, we both have the Cowboys winning the division. Why do you think the Cowboys are the best team in the NFC East?
Great defense, just got better, and it really depends on Dak Prescott whether or not he can be really consistent. And they added on a new wide receiver, Brandon Cooks. So you can't say no to the pieces they brought in. Even though I'm not a big fan of Mike McCarthy, I still think that with the talent that he has on this roster, he'll be able to get off a championship in this division.
Yeah, and so as I said in the Cowboys video, Jerry Jones gets a lot of hate from people on the line. And while he has had some questionable, contract issues with like Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. I think his biggest issue is not his ability to build a team, because in the draft they've been excellent, and in free agency, bringing Stephon Gilmore was a big signing, and so the actual physical talent on this roster is insane. Just pure roster talent wise, it's one of the top 3 to 4 rosters in the entire NFL, I believe. However, I do think that Jerry Jones has remained way too loyal to mediocre coaching. And I think that is going to be the eventual downfall of this Cowboys team. However, with so much talent, with the talent that they have on this team, I do think that they will end up being the best team in this division. Now, for me, I then have the Giants beating the Eagles. I think it's week 18 to knock the Eagles out of playoff contention and for the Giants to squeak into the playoffs at a 10-7 record, with Eagles being 9-8. So I will talk about the Eagles and why I think they're a little bit due for some regression. So not only are they losing their primary play caller from last year in Shane Steichen, Vic Fangio was an assistant here that really helped elevate this from a good defense last year to an elite defense, or a good defense 2 years ago to elite defense last year. So I think losing those two pieces is going to be a huge loss for this Eagles team. Another thing that I think they're due for some regression is injury health. Obviously you cannot predict injuries necessarily, but last year Devonta Smith and AJ Brown played all 20 games for them. They got a full season from their offensive linemen, and 35-year-old Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, who's been somebody who's a bit injury prone. Jalen Hurts' scrambling quarterback only missed 2 games last year. So I think offensively, they really benefited from not having injuries, and Jalen Hurts really got to play quarterback on easy mode. So even 1 or 2 injuries, I think, could really limit this offense and its potential. And on the defense, they still do have a lot of talented people, especially on the defensive line. So they will be able to kind of rotate people in and probably, help reduce the chance of injury. But they did also lose some, pieces on the back end. CJ Gardner-Johnson was really good for this team. Marcus Epps was a solid safety. And while they did an adequate job of replacing those, I do think that, there's only so much you can do, as you start losing pieces. And I think that they could be due for some regression.
I completely agree. I just didn't have them as far as a regression. I'm not having them as a winning team as last year. I had them at 10-7 compared to your 9-8. I had them actually squeaking over the Giants. I did have a tight race between the Eagles and the Giants, but I still think that even with the star power, I think that they can squeak into the playoffs again.
Yeah, I think my ranking is definitely accounting for, I think there will be some injury regression. Obviously, if this team stays healthy, I imagine they will be a playoff team. But so why are you a little bit lower on the Giants than I am?
I mean, on record-wise, we both have them at 10-7.
Okay, that's true.
So it's not really having them lower. I just had the Eagles just a little bit higher. And that just went off of who played better against the division. And that's in reality, I think between these two teams, that's going to be the big factor. Who wins more in division games? And I had the Eagles beating, I think, the Cowboys one time compared to the Giants not beating them at all. I think it was something like that to where I had them winning one more division game to get them in the playoffs and the Giants missing.
And, that very well could be the chance. When I was doing our Giants video, I saw that they were either plus 700 or plus 800 odds to win the NFC East. And that is a sneaky, really good value bet. Just throw like $5 on it, the potential to win like $100. I think that the Giants are definitely closer to winning this division than they are to coming in last. We both have the Commanders at 3-14. And I believe that they're going to be competing for the first overall pick. If you go back and look at our original power rankings video, the very first team was the Commanders. And I said I believe they're the team that's going to win the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. And so that's kind of how we have the NFC East breaking down. Now, as we transition to the NFC South, this is where we have some of the most discrepancy of any conference. So obviously you have your New Orleans Saints as the best team. Why are they the best team?
I mean, being a fan, I want them to win. But they do have one of the easiest schedules of any team And if they play well enough, if Derek Carr plays well enough, he didn't have to be the MVP caliber that he was years ago. If he's serviceable, kind of like how Andy Dalton was at the end of last year, they can really squeak out and win this division. It's a very weak and poor division. All of them, all those teams. I mean, none of them is really star power. They're going to be first round exits, in my opinion. Anyone that gets into the playoffs, but I just had them squeaking over anyone else because their non-division games are still easier matchups that they can win.
Yeah, they definitely do have one of the easier schedules in the league. My issues for the Saints, and it's actually why I have them dead last in the division, like the complete opposite, is I think Andy Dalton was sneakily really, really, really good for this team last year. And switching from Derek Carr, I don't think that is going to be an upgrade at quarterback like a lot of people really think it's going to do. There's actually a bet I placed down for Derek Carr to lead the NFL in interceptions this year. But not only do I not trust Derek Carr, uh, offensively, Michael Thomas, I don't think is capable of playing a full year. And at this point, predicting him to actually do it, I think is silly. He just has not been on the field. Then we look at this defense. It is a very aging defense. And last year was not great. I don't think Dennis Allen's proven to be a great head coach. I think he's a sneaky candidate to be one of the first coaches fired. He's not who I have. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But I do think he's a sneaky candidate to be fired early. And this defense is aging. Some of the best players, Demario Davis is like 33, getting up there in age. Cameron Jordan has been regressing as he's getting older. And another year older, I don't think he's suddenly going to get better. So I do think that the Saints team is going to disappoint a lot of people and just not really compete like some people think they will. And then we talk about the other teams in this conference. So you have the Buccaneers at 8-9. I have them at 9-8. I have them winning this division similar to how they did last year. Part of it is, I think, getting rid of Byron Leftwich, who was their offensive coordinator last year, is going to help a lot because last year the offense was not very creative. It wasn't, the play calling wasn't very good. And so maybe, bringing in Dave Canales, the quarterback coach who helped kind of revive Geno Smith's career, I think can come in and revive Baker Mayfield and hopefully give him his swagger back. He is the biggest question mark for this team, but they still do have a lot of the talent from that Super Bowl team 2 years ago. Defense, they got a lot of the same pieces. Offense, still got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. So I think with how much talent they have on this roster, that is why I have them to win the NFC South with a Baker Mayfield resurgence. So what are your thoughts on the Buccaneers?
I had them very close. I had one game behind yours at 8-9. I had them in second. You're so low on the Saints, it gives that Bucks the edge to be up front. I like the defense, very solid defense. I'm not as high on Baker Mayfield. I'm not saying that he's a terrible quarterback, but I'm not saying that he is going to be enough to help win this division. I think he'll be serviceable enough to where they might be able to squeak out the win, but I just don't think so. I have too much faith in the Saints and too much want for the Saints to be better. So Bucks at number 2 with 8-9 record.
See, I'm still mad at the Saints because they traded a first-round pick to get Trevor Penning, and that first-round pick ended up being Jalen Carter to the Eagles. So I'm still kind of mad at the Saints for that. But we talk about the other two teams in this division. I do think that the Falcons have a better chance of competing to win this division than some of the other teams, mainly just because I think Arthur Smith does an excellent job in coaching the run game and adding in Bijan Robinson, who has all the potential in the world to be a Hall of Fame running back. I think this team is really going to move the ball very efficiently in the running game. The only thing I think that's going to hold them back from winning the NFC South is Desmond Ridder, who I think is probably one of the bottom 3, I'll say for sure, worst quarterbacks in the NFL. So what do you think about this Falcons team?
I completely agree. Desmond Ridder is the key factor in whether or not they can succeed. Bijan, they're gonna really surround this offense around him and Kyle Pitts, try to get them the ball, and same with Drake London. They have very young talent, and I like it. It's just whether or not Desmond Ridder can help them or hurt them, because the defense, it's serviceable, it's solid, and I could still see them maybe even win this division. It's kind of a toss up between those 3. In my opinion, the Saints, the Bucks, and the Falcons. Again, it goes down to how well they play each other in the year to be able to squeak by. Because I still think all these teams are going to be first round exits in the playoffs. There's no like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, any of these are going to be Super Bowl contenders. They're just who can survive and who can squeak out the small wins, the chump yards to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely think that is a fair assessment on that. And then the Panthers, I have them as a little better than you do. I do think they have an excellent coaching staff. Not only do they have great positional coaches they brought in, such as Luke McCown is the first one coming ahead. There's someone else here. I think Dom Capers as a defensive assistant here. But as a defensive coordinator, they bring in Ajero Evero over from Denver, who is someone I'm really high on. Uh, they also have Frank Reich as their offensive coordinator. I think is really going to help set a good culture. And I do think year one, it's going to be a kind of okay start to this regime. But I think Bryce Young is going to come in and be a solid quarterback right away. And, there is a real legit possibility that the Panthers do find a way to win the division, in my head. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I wouldn't predict it. But I definitely don't quite have them as a bottom team, kind of like you do. So why do you have the Panthers as the worst team by far?
So when it comes to them, it's just always a big question mark when you're having rookie quarterbacks under center, like just starting off straight. I mean, Luke McCown, I do love him as a person, and coming in on this program, this might help them. But then again, I mean, the pieces that they have, like Adam Thielen being your number one receiver, that kind of hurts you. I mean, I'm not against Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is a solid running back, but he's not a star guy. There's no one on this roster, like other than the young guys that could be stars that show like are in my mind a star. You know what I mean? And that's why I had them just a little bit lower. Again, the reason that they're so low is that I had the Saints, the Bucs, and the Falcons, I think all sweeping them, and I think maybe the Panthers beat the Falcons once on my record, so I had them so low because of that.
Okay, I mean that's definitely fair. I just feel like this defense is going to be good enough to kind of help this offense, carry the offense. I do agree that the playmakers are definitely some of the worst in the NFL, especially because DJ Chark has already been confirmed ruled out for Week 1. So the passing offense will definitely struggle here. But overall, I think the NFC West or NFC South is definitely the most kind of up in the air division. I really don't think there's one clear standout team. And I do agree, whatever team does end up winning this division, barring some crazy upset, is going to be a first round exit. And now, as we head to the NFC West, we agree for the most part, at least with the top two. We both think that the 49ers are going to be the best team in this NFC West. When you give Kyle Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk are going to have a good offense regardless of who your quarterback is. And then on that defense, they're going to be so scary. And Nick Bosa just got an absolute bag, the highest, contract of any defensive player ever. So I really don't think you need to say much about the 49ers. As long as they figure out who's going to be their quarterback, they're going to win a lot of games. Why do you have Seattle at 10-7?
Having Seattle at 10-7, I didn't want them to have like this great resurgence. I mean, yes, Gino got a good contract to stay in, but I was just worried about how well he can do year in and year out. I mean, he can have one good year, but he's never like. When's the last time you've seen him have 2 good years in a row? I don't think ever, in my opinion. So I'm worrisome about him. But having being a playoff team, I do like them adding Smith Najigba from Ohio State. I like adding that third piece really helps them. I was just kind of scarce on the defense, really. I love the cornerback. It's just the up front, in my opinion, that is a little bit on the weaker side. So 10-7, I can see him win a little bit more. I can see him win a little less. I do have them going to the playoffs, though.
Yeah, Seattle is a team that I do think is going to be exciting. I believe in Geno Smith. Years ago, he was a second-round pick, had a lot of athletic tools, was in a horrible situation on the New York Jets, and then never really got another chance. He kind of just bounced around as a backup, finally gets a chance here. And I think he was good enough last year, and I think to me he proved that he is a NFL starting caliber quarterback. As I said in the title, I do think it is more than just an insanity run. However, my biggest issue with the Seattle Seahawks is the trenches on both sides of the ball. They have great playmakers. They have a really good secondary. They even have Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks, good linebackers. but they have one of the worst defensive lines in the league, and their offensive line, is it's not foolproof. There is some holes and question marks. So I think that is going to be what limits this team from actually competing, like knock on the 49ers. But I imagine with Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, it's going to be hard to have a bad offense. You know what I mean? And then these other two teams, the Rams and the Cardinals, we have them flip-flopped. You're a lot lower on the Rams than I am, and why is that?
I am really low on them because of that defense. I mean, it's just when you look at it, you go, Aaron Donald, and then that's it. And that's all I really see. It's just such a weak defense. I think a lot of their games could be high scoring and exciting, but I don't see them winning a lot of those close games. I mean, Matthew Stafford coming back and Cooper Kupp already having issues. It's hard to see any success for this team, and I want to. I love Sean McVay, great coach. I don't think he'll be able to get through those close wins and having the Cardinals with Kyler Murray coming back. So it's just tough having all that really suck for the Rams, even though I love Sean McVay and I love what he's trying to do. It's just, I don't know. It's just the mixture of all of that.
Yeah, I definitely do think that, 6 or 7 wins is definitely this team's ceiling, especially now that Cooper Kupp is missing week 1 and, potentially even more time. That's really going to hurt this offense. But I have a lot of faith in Sean McVay. And as long as, Cooper Kupp does come back healthy and you're able to keep Matthew Stafford upright, I do imagine this offense will at least be serviceable. But there's definitely a potential where they bottom out and are competing for, a top 3-ish pick. I definitely do see that being a real possibility. I do still think that the Cardinals have one of the worst rosters in the NFL. And I imagine that defense is going to be horrendous. And they do have some playmakers. The reason I do have the Cardinals as 5-12, not the worst team in the NFL, is Kyler Murray. He is one of the top, 8 or 9 quarterbacks in the NFL. He's capable of winning games on his own. And I really don't think he's going to miss quite as much time as some people think. For some reason, everybody thinks that they're going to, bottom out and trade away Kyler Murray. I feel like Kyler Murray is too good of a quarterback to trade away. Granted, I could be proven wrong. But when he comes back, he's capable of winning games on his own. And I do think that he can come in, win a couple games, and prevent them from getting a Caleb Williams. But, if they do have a bad year, wouldn't be that surprising because it's a horrible roster.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I have them on the ceiling end of their year with Kyler Murray coming back a little earlier and be able to make those wins possible. So that's why I have them at 6-11 compared to lower.
Yeah, no, a lot of people do expect that it's going to be the worst team in the NFL. I don't think they're even favored in a single game that they're playing in, from the opening lines. I do think that they have at least enough talent to win a couple of games. But yeah, I think the Rams and Cardinals are really in a 2-horse race to be the worst team in the NFC West. And so now as we kind of look towards our playoff picture, who we have making the playoffs and such, it's pretty simple seeding order. We both have 1, 2, 3, 4 being the same division winners, 49ers, Cowboys, Lions. And obviously the NFC South spot is going to be 4th for each of us. I have the Buccaneers. You have the Saints. Then wildcard teams, I'm going Seahawks, Giants, Vikings. Who are the 3 you have?
I have Vikings, Seahawks, similar to you, but again, it's the Eagles that beat out the Giants. So I have them in the playoffs again.
Okay. And so, yeah, that is the one difference for us. Then as we navigate through the NFC playoffs, I have my NFC championship game, have the Detroit Lions taking on the San Francisco 49ers.
Man, I have the exact same thing. I'm just too high on the Lions. I worry that it might not be them, but like the way I have the Lions going through, I have them facing in Dallas against the Cowboys, and that's a tough game. I want the Lions to go far. That's why I have them going so far. But yeah, I have the 49ers squeaking them out in that NFC championship though.
Yeah, I do. The NFC is definitely the weaker conference of the two. And I think it doesn't really matter who ends up winning the conference. They're going to lose. I feel like whoever comes out of the other side. But yeah, Lions 49ers, I do think it's going to be a fun game. I imagine Kyle Shanahan will be able to exploit a Lions defense, which does have some holes. So that is definitely, we are pretty similar in our thoughts on the NFC for the most part. We do have the same kind of cluster of playoff teams and what teams kind of going to miss out and kind of what teams are going to bottom out for the most part. Now we're going to go ahead and get into some award predictions. So when we talk about MVP, neither of us have the MVP coming from the NFC. So you'll be able to check that out in our video on the AFC. And so for the Offensive Player of the Year, my Offensive Player of the Year prediction is going to be the AFC. So you'll be able to check that out in the next video. But who is your Offensive Player of the Year?
Justin Jefferson, Jay Jettis. He's a great receiver. It was, in my opinion, it was him and Jamar Chase. I just think that he's so more involved in the Vikings offense than Chase is over the Bengals, even though he is fantastic. I think that Justin is just so dynamic in that offense. I really see him going an incredible year to get that Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, the Vikings offense feeds through Justin Jefferson. That's definitely for sure. And I do think that, Cooper Kupp got pretty close, but if somebody's going to hit the 2,000-yard mark, I would not be surprised if it was Justin Jefferson. So that's definitely a good shout. When it comes to Defensive Player of the Year, yours is in the AFC, so you can check that out in the other video. But I have Micah Parsons. Nick Bosa won it last year. I was between Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons, but I feel like Micah Parsons can do a little bit of everything. And I think this is going to be a year where we see 100 pressures from Micah Parsons. I think he's going to get close to 20 sacks, and he's really going to take over and dominate the NFL. Because you think about it, he was drafted as a true middle inside linebacker, and now as he's getting even better and learning how to be an edge rusher even more, that's scary. He's been an edge rusher for 2 years and is already one of the top 3 in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So some more time learning and developing. I am terrified to be any tackle that goes against Micah Parsons. And so that is why I have him as my Defensive Player of the Year. And when we talk about offensive rookie, we both have offensive rookies in the NFC. We both have them in the NFC South. So I feel like Jake from State Farm, a.k.a. Bryce Young, quarterbacks, a lot of awards are geared towards quarterbacks. And I think that, Bryce Young is going to come in and be one of the top 20 best quarterbacks right off a rip. And since he's going to be good enough, I do think that's going to end up giving him the offensive rookie of the year award, in my opinion.
Oh, I mean, I was close on him. I liked the idea of putting Bryce Young. I was worrisome about his talent around him, whether or not those receivers are going to be able to catch the ball enough that he throws those tight passes. But I had Bijan Robinson from Falcons, and I just think that he's going to be so involved, and the stats are going to be so crazy coming from him. I mean, I hate putting a rookie running back at the Offensive Rookie of the Year, but man, he's dynamic. He's going to be all over the place. He's going to be running. He's going to be passing or catching passes. Sorry, and he's going to be insane. I think that he'll squeak over Bryce Young for that Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, to me, these are the two clear favorites. For me, though, in order for Bijan to compete and actually win the award, I do think he needs to be one of the top 3 running backs in the league. So, if he has 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns, I feel like Bryce Young's going to have enough production, be enough player to win that. But if we get a 1,600 yards, 15 touchdown performance from Bijan, then I definitely think it goes to him. Obviously, Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator that gave the ball to Derrick Henry 4 billion times a game. So they're definitely going to force feed him, and that's a very plausible possibility for Bijan to win that. We talk about defensive rookie. Both of ours are going to be in the AFC, so you can check that out in the other video. And so, yeah, the only other thing we're going to talk about is Coach of the Year and our prediction of who's going to be the first coach fired. My Coach of the Year is going to be in the AFC. Who's your coach going to be?
Gotta love him. You can't deny him. Dan Campbell, the man. I just love. He needs the shout out of what he's doing in this Lions organization. He is such a dynamic, such a force to be around. If you go back to his first ever interview, it's just you want to be on that team. I would run through a wall for Dan Campbell. I would kill a man. I like possibly. I don't know. I you know what? I'm down. I'm double down on it. I would kill a man for Dan Campbell because he is just that dynamic of a guy to be around. To be like you want this organization to be good. So I want for him to get the credit he deserves.
Yeah, I definitely think that he, at least he's going to be the internet's coach of the year. Whether he wins the award or not is TBD, but he's definitely a good shout for it. And then the first coach to get fired, I do think there is a couple interesting names. You know, if the Falcons start off slow, Arthur Smith is on the hot seat. If the Saints have as bad as a year as I'm predicting, Dennis Allen could be on the hot seat. However, the two coaches, or the coach that we have as our first coach being fired, we both agree is Ron Rivera. I think that the Commanders don't have a great roster. The defense hasn't been great under Ron Rivera, and I do think they have a really tough start to their schedule. So when they go, 1-5, 1-6, 1-7, even, what's the point of keeping Ron Rivera around? So I do think that Ron Rivera might end up being the first domino to fall. A really, really, really sneaky dark horse candidate to be the first coach to get fired is Sean McVay. Don't necessarily think it's going to happen. I don't know if I'd bet on it, but the Rams are definitely going to bottom out. And it could be a giant kind of rebuilding, retooling year for the Rams. If I was the Rams, would I fire him? No. Just saying that could be a possibility.
I mean, I completely agree. I also had Ron Rivera. Man, he was a great coach on the Panthers. Just coming to the Commanders, he was good for morale and good for the sake that they needed him. But in my opinion, with having this new owner, I think it was such a slow start they're gonna have. It's gonna be all right. We brought in this offensive coordinator from the Chiefs, and I think that they need to be a clean slate with Ron Rivera going to be leaving mid-year. I think Eric Bieniemy, I can never say his name right, is going to step up and be that head coach, or the interim at least head coach, after Ron Rivera exits. But who knows? I mean, Ron Rivera could swindle his way to keeping a job, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I definitely think that the Commanders can be real exciting having Caleb Williams and Eric Bieniemy next year. Or Shadir Sanders, the way they played week one. That's a little, hey, who knows. But overall, just kind of doing a quick little brief recap of everything. So your division winners, we have Lions, Cowboys, 49ers that we agree on. You're going for the Saints. I'm going for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The wild card teams, we both have the Seahawks and the Vikings making the playoffs. However, I have the Giants being the last spot. You have the Philadelphia Eagles. But it's pretty simple from there on out. NFC Championship, Lion, 49ers. Both of us think that, and both of us believe the 49ers will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Before we get out of here, is there any other last bits that you'd like to throw in there?
No. You said it loud and clear, so I'm good.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all very much for watching, guys. We'll be back with the AFC edition very, very soon. So please stick around for that. And if you stuck around for this far into the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. We'll be back very, very soon with some more content for y'all. Thank you, guys.